Welcome to WRM, Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, the Edward Jones, a certified life coach who specializes in work relationships, also host of this podcast. My guest is Melissa Muganzo, founder and CEO of Muganzo Entertainment. She is here today to share her thoughts and experiences that will be beneficial to you. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here and to join you in a conversation. Like you said, we got a lot to talk about. So I'm excited to just get in conversation with you.
Absolutely. And folks, for full disclosure, Melissa and I worked together back at Sac State and even worked professionally for a while. I helped coach her, but right now she is just knocking the roof off this thing with everything that she's doing. I can't wait to hear how much she is doing right now. But the one thing that we've all gone to mixers, chamber meetings, and you have your name tag on. The first thing people ask is, what do you do? But
hmm
for me, I always like to know who people are, how it all began, the things that influenced you along the way that helped bring you up to today. So tell me about your background, maybe your childhood, or things, people that really influenced you and helped make you the person that you are today. How did it all begin?
That's a great question. I always tell people I'm from Florida by way of heaven. I dropped
Hmm.
into Earth in 1987. I'm a
Okay.
huge Capricorn, December baby. And I grew up in a really beautiful and really eclectic Black household where my dad is from Nairobi, Kenya. So it's East Africa. And my mother is West Indian from St. Thomas. And so my and my sister's idea of Blackness was always so big, so vast. My parents were hyper religious in their own right. I grew up as with a mother who believed in Seventh-day Adventism and with a father who was raised Catholic, but also had his own African spiritual practices. So this idea of like, what does it mean to be Black? What does it mean to be spiritual? What does it mean to be a person that is connected to engaging with folks and connecting with people and understanding people at the core? I knew this really big understanding of how to do that from a very, very early age. With the last name Muganzo, right? I would be in school and teachers would just jumble that thing all the way up. So I really, really learned how to connect with people and stand up for myself and to express myself. At the age of 8, my parents divorced and my mom moved my sister and I to Southern California to be closer to family. So my aunts were living out here and so was my uncle at the time, and it was really great. I got to connect with my cousins and be with family. But Southern California is very different from Florida. Very, very
Mhm.
different from Florida. It's faster, it's more expensive. There's a lot more opportunity in the area. So my mom, who was an entertainer by trade, she is a songstress, she is a songwriter. She has directed choirs and all kind of orchestras and festivals since she was very, 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 very young, a teenager, in fact. She's had singing groups and a television show and a radio show. So just being next to someone like that, how can you not develop these skills? She's also a distinguished Toastmaster, ran the Toastmaster Club. She was really, really involved. And so when she would put together her singing groups, she would, I'd be around it. I'd pick up notes on the piano. That's when I learned that I could hear music on the piano without reading notes. I could just pick it up. Or she would harmonize a sound and I would harmonize next to her and she'd be like, girl, you can sing? What? Okay. She's freaking out. Like my little daughter here can do all these things. And so at the age of 10, she enrolled me into a dance group through my church, which would travel to these other churches in the area to perform. And that's when everything took off. My love for entertainment, my love for performing, my love for bodily and physical expression. I loved it. And I have been doing that love ever since.
Now that is really interesting because I've heard you sing. I know you have great stage presence, but I didn't know the backstory. So that really helps out a lot. It's just amazing that people that I've known for a long time and not asking that question uh, left me just where you are right now. But this really tells me how it all began, and I can see all that stuff that your mother did, especially how that
Mhm.
influenced. So,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
as an entertainer, now this question is probably an obvious answer, but did you choose your career or did it choose you?
Woo! So my career chose me at an early age, but we got into a big argument, my career and I, when I became 18. And I left that career out of fear of rejection, fear of disappointment, fear of finances. And that's really when I was doing all this performing arts work. I was a co-choreographer for a traveling dance company. I had a singing group. I mean, it's all as a teenager, right? I didn't even think about how impactful that was as a teenager to have this all this like responsibility, but love it so much that you're not even thinking twice about it. And I
Mhm,
remember talking to my family about me wanting to study dance in college, and that's where the fight began
mhm,
of dance and performing arts not being lucrative and it being super
mhm,
competitive. And my family was nervous that I would do all this training to end up being broke. So
mhm,
I fell into that, right? Fear, which I knew it came from a loving place, but I fell into that. And I said, I'm going to study something, and I have air quotes here, smart. So I went
mhm,
on to study international relations and hated it. And I hated it so
mhm,
much that I got kicked out of college because I wasn't going to class. So I had no grades. And it
mhm,
wasn't until I went to community college, got my bearings back, got back into the institution I was going to, and really started understanding the importance of loving what you do and being a student of what you do and standing firm in whatever you believe in, regardless of what people say about it. And that came in the form of social justice and activism and standing up for Black voices, but recognizing that entertainment, that's me, it's in my blood. And so I was a dance teacher, I was a choreographer, I started doing acting. These were all these things that I was doing. Again, my career showing me like, we're one. You can't run from me. You love doing this. You would do this for free if you could. And I
mhm.
fell into conflict with it again when it was time to graduate from college. And I was nervous because I had not studied dance as a major. I had all these different connections, but I didn't study it. So I didn't apply to a performing arts graduate school. Instead, I applied to an academic program in graduate school because I was doing all this work with students. But even in graduate school, what did I do, Ed? I was
Mhm.
dancing, singing, traveling, performing, even though I was studying and working in this atmosphere. And that's because my career was always telling me, we're one. We are one. You cannot get rid of me. So I feel like it chose me. It chose me. Even when I ran from it, even when I got scared of it, it kept on saying, like, you're meant to do this.
That is really, really good information because a lot of people get into things, and it sounds like it was for security, financial security, or whatever else it might be. And you think, oh, I got to be safe. And then you find something that's safe, but it's not your passion.
Right.
And so when you look at it, and the one thing you mentioned, obviously the performing arts and all that is all part of you. And then you mentioned social justice. So, how do you work those two things together?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you can wake up and you recognize that social justice is all around us and it's in everything that we do, right? In every small part of the corner that we reside in, we have the ability to give voice and give power to folks that have been voiceless for really, really long. And so I
Hmm.
started to think about all the dancers and all the performers and entertainers and the songstress that throughout history, when they had a platform, used their voice to give Black people liberation and freedom. And as I got more comfortable with who I was, I recognized it was more so about Black folks, Black women, Black queer folks, Black trans folks, like all these people that were religiously oppressed. There were so many ways in which I needed to speak up, but I couldn't speak up until I was truly myself. And I couldn't be truly myself until I leaned into the career that has always been a part of my life and following the passion that is in my soul, right? When you follow passion, you follow purpose, you find self, you connect with whatever your divine power is, and then you're able to express that in the way that makes sense to you. So for myself, I really consider myself a Black centric entertainer whose platform is for the liberation of Black voices. And when you see yourself positively in the media, then you know that you can be. And I just remember as a child looking back on all the chocolate skin girls, I call them, that made me feel like, oh yeah, I can be that, whether it's somebody who's playing a teacher, right? Or playing a doctor or playing an engineer or having a love story or driving a nice car or moving into a nice area, right? If you see that, then you realize, oh yeah, I could do that too. And I knew that's why my platform was going to be important, because I had liberation work to put out into the universe to help liberate those around me in the future.
And you just made me think about what they're doing for Josephine Baker right now.
Yes, yes.
That she was an entertainer, but she also was a liberation person, and she's being honored for her work for liberating people from oppression. And I
Yep,
think about Aretha Franklin, how she did
yep.
a lot of work with Dr. King, songstress extraordinaire, but very much into helping people rise, just like you're doing.
Mahalia Jackson, Alvin
Mhm.
Ailey. I mean, even shows like A Different World or, all kind of shows, even the Jeffersons, right? Moving on up, right?
Right.
These are all these shows that are out there for folks to see, but they're also to help you think and to visualize that you too can have whatever you desire, right?
Mhm.
And so media is powerful, entertainment is powerful. Or when we feel a certain way, when we feel good, we putting on some music, right? We're like, we want to put
Right.
some music on, we want to dance to it. Or for some folks that are really connected to going to a house of worship, when you get into whether somebody maybe is the spiritual leader speaking to and it hits your soul, or that music hits your soul, or you're in community, or when you see kids perform in the community, doesn't that make you feel good? You see little
Right.
drummers or little dancers, you just, it lights your spirit. And so entertainment is a part of how we get through things, but it's also how we show up for ourselves. It's in our soul.
Yes. And when you talk, it's just those two things, entertainment and social justice, are so compatible. You mentioned a number of people. Another one I think about is Nina Simone.
Nina
And she was
Simone, huge, huge
young
activist.
thinking in black.
Yes.
So that definitely works very well together. And that's a good way to get the message out and move people in that way.
Mhm.
Now, one thing I know, Melissa, you're a leader.
Oh,
So
thank you.
when did you know that you were a leader? What made you feel that I can do these things for myself, but I also can help other people out? So how did that all get started?
Oh, I'm really honored that you say that, because I remember as a kid, I was so not a leader. I had
Mm,
gifts, but I was so intimidated by people that had strong personalities. I was a huge follower. I wanted to be accepted by people. I wanted to hang with the cool kids, and that just was not me. And
mhm,
so I felt really isolated and intimidated. And it wasn't until I was in high school and I became a cheerleader. Shout out to all the cheerleaders out there,
mhm,
and people could see that I could dance. Like I could really dance. I could kill some choreo right now. I could handle
mhm,
it, and I would steal the show. And
mhm,
my cheer coach was like, "You need to be the cheer captain." I was like,
mm,
"I can only cartwheel. I can't even do a backflip." She was like, "Doesn't matter. You have stage presence. You have energy. You know how to get a crowd excited. You need to be the captain. You need to lead the team." I'm like, "Okay." I started doing that. I started getting all this attention from all the people that were like, "You're not cool. We're not hanging with you. You have a weird last name. No,
mm,
no, no, no." And I just remember dance helping me express myself, right? Be a part of my personality. And in college, I remember, yeah, using dance to, find friends in the dance company and different classes. And that's when I realized that people will get behind something that makes them feel good. And
mhm,
that was the way in which I was able to make people feel good. But I knew that once I had their attention, that I had to be really mindful about how I connected with them. If I was
mhm,
going to be an influence in your life, I wanted to put forth something positive, and I wanted to connect with you on a spiritual level to first help you find your sense of purpose. But then we need to connect on how both of our alignment is going to help the next person, right? Because we're not in this life by ourselves. And that's when I really, really started to focus on how do I put good into the world and help people while also making sure that I'm holding myself accountable. And that has been an ongoing journey of making sure that I'm doing the best that I can. And when I'm totally messing up, right? Getting back to center and reminding myself of my purpose and why I'm here. And that's how I am right now, right? That's how I came to be. I believe in the power of connection. I believe that everybody has good in them. And I believe for myself, a part of my role as someone that's in the community of entertainment is to bring others their form of liberation. And that always feels good to me.
Well, and you're a connector, but the confidence that you display now I guess everybody maybe goes through that when they're younger about not having it, but you have the confidence, the energy, and the energy is contagious. Now,
Thank you.
you talk about philanthropy and things like that, helping people out in that way. I remember when we were working together with the coaching, you talked about having money so people could go to college. You had that
Yes.
idea of, I want to help people help themselves.
Yeah.
So now talk with me a little bit about that, and let's talk a little bit more about where you are now with your business and your work.
So when I was so blessed to go through your coaching experience, I think we were together for about a year.
Yeah.
And we had these quarterly check-ins, and I recommend career coaching, business coaching to everybody. You should totally do it. Even if getting your own business is not your end goal, it's just really important to sit with someone who's a great listener to help you spitball all of your ideas out on paper, align it, get through the junk, right? And then hold you accountable to meet the next time to see what was actually worth accomplishing and what was just mumbo jumbo. And that was so big for me. Remember, I told you that my career has always chosen me. I would just get into arguments with it.
Right.
Well, so I worked for the listeners out there. Edward Jones and I worked in higher education at a four-year institution, doing a range of things, but essentially helping college students, enter college and exit successfully. And I remember in my undergraduate experience, me feeling the pressure during my senior year of what am I going to do with my life now that everybody is asking me, you're about to graduate, so what are you going to do? And having no answers that I felt were good enough to share with them. I felt like no matter what I tell you, I'm not going to be an engineer. So I know you don't want to hear my answer. And then when I got into graduate school and I started connecting with the undergraduate students at that institution, they would feel the same thing. I'm about to graduate. My parents are pressing me. My grandparents are pressing me. And so I ended up doing my graduate thesis on senior year transition of college students and how it's the institution's responsibility to keep that same energy. When we are recruiting students to come to college, we need to have that same energy, but when they graduate, to make sure they have a job or make sure they get to graduate school, to make sure that we're still being given this wraparound support, because there's not enough reasons in the world present day to go into student loan debt, to come out and still be broke and not have a job. I could have done that without the loans, right? So
Right.
I just remember feeling like we're doing a disservice to people that went to school, that are the first in their family or the most marginalized, and then all we're giving them is student debt in the paper saying that it's going to work out. I had a spiritual conflict with that. So I decided to do something about it and start a scholarship for college seniors that needed, $100 for a grad school app fee. What? All you need is $100? I can do that. Or someone that said, hey, I have a medical school interview in Detroit and I can't afford the ticket. All you need is $300 to interview and you can get into med school. I can do that, right? These were like small things that could be life-changing. And so that's what I decided to do. But in doing that, it was conflicting with my love for entertainment. It was
Right.
conflicting. And I kept seeing students come into my office that were saying they wanted to go to grad school, but that's actually not what they wanted to do, right? That was the family response to sound smart. They really wanted to start a clothing line. They really wanted to start a dance company. They really wanted to open up a barbershop. They really wanted to be a photographer. And I just thought, so many students are in these programs that are rigorous, and some of them are having horrendous GPAs only because they haven't been honest about the things that they really want to do, because families think that if you get this college degree, then you're going to be smarter, bigger, better. And while for some, it does give you more access, and some industries do require certain credentialing,
Mm-hmm.
Not for folks that, want to be a realtor. You probably don't
Right.
need a student loan debt for that, right? So I knew that not only just giving this micro funding was going to be important for folks, but really creating a platform for that future entrepreneurs, emerging entrepreneurs can have this wraparound resources, right, to get them to their next level. I don't have to walk with you the entire journey, but I can meet you right at the beginning and give you where to find the paperwork, give you the micro grant to get to file, or to at least figure out how to get coaching services, or sit down with you to talk through your plan. And once you have that, go. And so
Hmm.
that's what I did. And I think that's what started giving me my confidence is this is what I've always been good at: connecting, engaging, inspiring, resenting, aligning. I'm really good at those things. And so I started to turn off the noise in the other areas and really hone in on what I love to do. And I knew that my business was going to come from there. And that's right after we started doing our coaching under your leadership. And that's
Well,
when I launched
great.
my business. Mm-hmm.
Great. Now, one thing we think about, there's always obstacles that sometimes get in the way. What's the toughest thing you faced, and how did you overcome it as you were moving forward with your business or any other thing that happened in your life?
Oh my gosh, imposter syndrome. That is the first thing. To anyone that knows that feeling of I want to do something, my heart is begging me to do it, but I'm nervous because no one around me has ever done it. That feeling, or who's going to buy into this, or who's going to hire me, or who's going to contract with me, right? We start to think about, and I just read this quote today. There's a calendar, it's called You're a Badass, and today it says, to think we have arrived here with perfect little bundles of joy and then set about the task of learning to unlove ourselves as we get older. How ridiculous is that? How
Mm,
ridiculous is that? And I think
right.
that's what happened, right? You tend to, everything is perfect until it's time for you to fly yourself, and you start thinking about all the negative things that could happen, right? I can't, I won't, I shouldn't. And you look up and you realize, well, shoot, everybody has a first day.
Mm.
Everybody has a first day. Why can't I have a first day? Why can't I have a first year? Why can't I just have a moment of growth? And so that was the first thing that I realized that I had to overcome, was just imposter syndrome, because I had been doing all this really, really beautiful work. The second thing was financing. Because when you're starting out, you're trying to figure out, where is all this money coming from that I need to fulfill this dream? And how can I utilize my skills to create income? That was
Right.
definitely a challenge, especially because my dream was so big and my finances were so small. I was like, how am I going to get there? I see it, I
Right.
just can't afford it yet. And then after that, I think finding a name
Mhm.
for the business that I knew I wanted to create. Those are probably the three hardest things in starting a business that I had to overcome.
So what did you do? You put your foot in the ground and said, I'm not going to let this hold me back. And what did you do that day? You said, this is what I'm going to do. Or maybe it was a gradual process, but that's what I want our listeners to know is
Oh,
how
yeah.
you turned that into where you are today and the person you are today.
Yes. So it actually came from, I don't know if it was a midlife, a quarter midlife, a third midlife. It came from a moment of despair, actually.
Okay.
I was at work, and my heart could not take me ignoring my career anymore. I found
Mm,
myself frustrated being in work meetings when I really wanted to be on LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter promoting this upcoming dance comp that I was in. I found
right.
myself getting upset because I wanted to go to an entertainment conference that was
Mhm.
during the week, but I had this other 8 to 5 job that I was totally like, my mind was slowly just like not even being there because it was so focused on other things. I would be invited to be on podcasts or audition for different acting gigs. And I'd realize I couldn't go to that because I'm at work, not wanting to be at work. And it had nothing to do with me wanting to help students. It had nothing to do with the people that I was connected to at work. It was just that I was working in an industry that was no longer feeding my soul, because what I needed to do in that industry, I did, right? I
Right.
did what I needed to do. So now I was moving on from that spiritually, but physically, I couldn't let go of that yet because I have responsibilities, right? I have bills, I have a family, we need benefits. And so instead of getting more and more upset, I decided to go to therapy and
Mhm.
talk to a therapist about like, how do I move forward, right? How do I do that? I've set up this career as an educator, but I've always been an entertainer.
Mhm.
And so she told me, she's like, Melissa, you've always been an entertainer. The goal is now to put more of your energy in entertainment. And that means to choose entertainment at whatever cost. So if
Mhm.
you can go to a webinar on something, go to it. If you can take a day off of work, go to something. If you can utilize vacation hours, right? Utilize your vacation hours. She was like, if you want this, you need to go get it. And when you have a mindset that I'm going to have this, then you realize nothing's really in your way. And that year was the year that I made all of my social platforms. I filed my LLC. I started talking about to branding. I created my website that year in 2018 while still at work. I don't want people to think that
Good.
I just hopped off at work and went straight into this. No, if I had worked from 8 to 5, that means from 5 to 7, I would still be at work working on my personal stuff. If I had stuff that I wanted to complete, that means on Saturday and Sunday, I was networking, I was negotiating, I was doing things and separating myself as a CEO and establishing myself. And so now when people say, oh my goodness, how did you get here? I'm like, oh, this came from a series of events where I finally said that nothing is in my way anymore. It's all made up stuff. Nothing is in my way. I can have a website, I can have a business, I can have a bank account, I can have my own business platforms on social media. I can express all of my stuff right now, while I'm in a whole other job. I can do that right now, right? And I encourage people that have a dream and a desire to do that, to do that. If you want
Great.
it, you could do it.
Just go for it. Now, I'm going to ask you two questions together, and one answer one, and then go to the next one. The
Okay.
first one is, what have you found most rewarding about your career? And second, if people want to know more about you and how to connect with you, how would they do that? So those are the two questions I want to end with.
When I tell you, I'll give you a perfect example. I'm in an acting class right now, and it's so fun. We have to memorize these different scripts every week, and I have a ball. And the class is from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Monday nights. I want to say it again. It's from 7 p.m. to 11
I
p.m.
heard you.
on Monday nights. And when I tell you, my heart is so happy to go to acting class. And when I tell you, I get excited to be on platforms like this, or when I connect with other entertainers about upcoming productions, and I get to screenwrite productions for a commercial concept or an online conference. I mean, I am so happy. I'm so happy. I'm excited about it. I'm always thinking about it. And that's when you know, like, you're following truth. You're
Mhm.
following truth, and and not that you're not afraid to fail, because there's a phrase that says dare to mess up, right? But that you know that you have everything inside of you to rebuild and repair. That's when you know you're living in truth, that you're not afraid to mess up, because you know you have everything inside of you to rebuild and repair. And that is how I feel like I cannot mess up. I can learn because it's my business, right? But with working in another area or another space that's not living in truth, you're going to be afraid to mess up. You're going to be disconnected from the work. You're not going to find yourself happy about certain tasks because you're doing them for basic need reasons, right? You're not doing it because you want to. And there's a difference for that.
And the thing I would sum it up is that when you find what you really, really want, that's when life will be most rewarding for you, is what it
Absolutely.
sounds like. Because all these other things you talked about, and when you said I had to face this, I could do these things that would give me security,
Right.
but my heart's not in it. And when you found your heart and everything aligned, that's when the rewards came. And they're continuing to come. Just listening to you talk, I hear that energy and that passion in doing that, because I'm not an actor. So 7 to 11, that wouldn't work for me. But because you have the passion for it, the excitement is there, and that's what makes it so rewarding for you. So what I'm saying to the listener is find your passion, and you see it exemplified right here. You found your passion. So Melissa, people who want to help find that passion, if it's just general passion or maybe getting into the performing arts or social justice, how do they connect with you?
Absolutely. And let me just say, if you don't know what your passion is, because that phrase can be really overwhelming for some folks, like,
Mhm.
oh, I have a lot of passions, or I don't know what my passion is. What is
Mhm.
something you've always been good at, but you've just downplayed it? That's a really great way to look inward. Like, what is something I've always been good at? Am I good at, drawing? Have I always been someone that was a good drawer? Have I been good about doing eyebrows? Am I good at putting smells together? Am I good at styling? Like, can I style some clothes together? I mean, really, really think about what is something I've always been good at. I could really decorate a house. Well, I could put some stuff in a room together, right? I could fix a computer. I could, any of those things. I can write some beautiful quotes. Those things, right? That's your destiny knocking at your heart saying, we're good at this, right? We could take this far. So for anyone out there that's like, what is my passion? Ask yourself, what is something I've always been good at, but I probably just downplayed it because I thought it was just what everybody was good at. Ways to connect with me, exciting stuff. So on Instagram, I'm at Muganzo Entertainment. That's Muganzo Entertainment, Muganzo Entertainment. On Twitter, I am Melissa, Melissa underscore Muganzo, Muganzo. And on LinkedIn, you can just type in Muganzo Murphy. There's only two on there, and that's me and my wife. So you can't help but find us. And that's Muganzo Murphy. You can also visit my website at www.muganzoentertainment.com. I'm currently in development right now, putting together a documentary on Black uterine health and healing. I can't wait to premiere it in July, and I can't wait to share it with you, Edward, on your platform and have folks come out to the premiere.
Absolutely, absolutely. Melissa, thank you so much. Again, there is so much more we can talk about. When I visited you on LinkedIn, I saw Be an Ally. So one day maybe we can come back and talk more about that as well. But
Absolutely.
thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to come back and chat with you soon.
For sure. Folks, this is WRM Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, the Edward Jones, a certified life coach. To learn more about my coaching, go to prodestinycoaching.com. That's prodestinycoaching.com. Take the work relationship quiz, and you'll earn a free consultation. So look forward to hearing from you and looking forward to for you to participate in future episodes. Have a great day. And we're out.
Do we stop?
Okay, so good. So what we do is now sometimes these things come up. Welcome to WRM, Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, the Edward Jones, a certified life coach who specializes in work relationships and host of this podcast. My guest is Ed Lewis, a veteran storyteller and the who serves on the Storytelling Association of California Board and the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. He is here today to share his thoughts and experiences that I know will be beneficial to you. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Edward. And having a name like Edward is perfect. That's the
That's
perfect
right.
name, huh?
And they always say two Eds are better than one.
That's right. Very
So,
nice.
Ed, you have been very successful. We've known you for a few years now, and I am the spouse because my wife is the storyteller, but I know that you are very successful. Many times people go to mixers and the first thing they ask is, what do you do? But the first thing I ask is, who are you? And that's your background, how you got started. people or events that influenced you along the way. So tell us a little bit about your background before we get into what you do.
Okay, well, I was adopted at birth by two amazing parents that really set the foundation for me to feel confident. I had a dad who was very intelligent, spent a lot of time with me, a mother who was just loving and caring, and really provided lots of opportunities for me to explore. And one of the probably kind of the key thing for me was that my parents were adventurous. We had a boat as a kid. We'd go up to the islands in the San Juans, which is below the Canadian border, where I would meet my uncle, who was a great storyteller, and my aunt, who also was a great storyteller. We'd tell stories around the campfires. I had that experience growing up, and my parents really saw to it that I had the opportunities to explore what I was interested in.
Well, that is really good. So storytelling started really early in your life. Then how old were you when you started experiencing that?
Oh, God, I remember being read stories every night at bedtime. And then I would say, probably from 5 years on, when we started traveling to the islands and visiting my aunts and uncles, they always told stories. And we had so many campfires and campouts. And then I continued that with our own little gatherings in the block as a kid. We'd get together and we'd camp out in someone's backyard. And I would lead the group in storytellers telling, especially ghost stories that I heard from my uncle in particular.
So how old were you when you told your first story?
Probably 6.
My goodness.
And I was kind of the storyteller of our neighborhood when we would get together, once every couple of weeks, do their little camp out in somebody's backyard. But I was definitely the storyteller, and I really owe that to my uncle. I think my uncle Wally.
Great. Now, did you do this in school, in high school, and all the way up through?
No, I didn't do that, especially junior high and high school, because my parents made a move from the town I loved to a town, Seattle, where it was a big city, and I didn't like it, so I just rebelled. But I didn't participate in school. However, I was an organizer. I just had that organizing skill, probably from watching my dad and mom and the way they ran their household and the business. And so I was always an organizer. So I started a rock and roll band. I started a club called the Do It Club, and we were we got 100 members, and we were all in it because we wanted to do it, whatever that meant. Of course, we had our sexual innuendos, but none of us had ever had any sex with anyone. So, but I was an organizer of those kind of gatherings in the band, and we played for different events. But the storytelling, really didn't happen much around then. It was more after I got out of college and I got drafted in the military during the Vietnam War. And when I came home, I had scrambled ideas. I was suffering from PTSD, which nobody knew much about. And so I really did some soul searching. And that's when I took 2 years and I traveled around the world. I backpacked and I lived in a cave for 6 months in the Canary Islands. And I was devouring books and doing meditation and meeting all these people. And of course, we just share stories all over, people from diverse backgrounds. In the 70s, a lot of people were hitchhiking around the world, and I met all kinds of people and listen. I like to listen. So I listened to stories and of course shared my own stories. And as I was going on adventures, I then had lots of my own stories to share.
The thing that I was going to ask you, and it sounds like it's already been answered, did you choose this path or did it choose you? That is storytelling.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, I definitely chose it, but I had those influences. And I would say my Uncle Wally was the main influence. And then all the people I met in travels. I mean, I just heard stories. And of course, we gathered around campfires at night and everyone's sharing stories. So I learned how to listen and then, of course, share my own stories. So, so there were
That's
lots
great.
of.
Well, that's great. Now, you talked a little bit about being a leader and that you're the leader of the band. And what would you say is your leadership style?
Well, I am an organizer. I'm a systems person. If you ever see my house, I have a huge rock collection, but they're all organized. The amethysts are here, and there's certain levels, and the certain rocks go a certain way. You know, I mean, I'm very organized in probably most everything I do, and so that organization is one of the key factors. And then I'm a good listener. You know, that's a really important thing that you just don't. I never wanted to be, or I don't think it's healthy to just have someone who takes over and runs the show and like a little dictator, and everybody just listens to them.
Right.
I have that desire to hear what people have to say, and then since I have that organizing skill, put things together in systems and then present it, but not be so tied to it that it has to be my way. So I think those are kind of two of the key things: organization, ability to listen, are two of the key elements for me.
Now, your organizations that you work with, a lot of them, would you say that they're volunteer organizations now with the storytelling, or is it paid positions structured in that way?
No, the organizations that I'm involved with in storytelling for adult audiences are all volunteers.
Okay. So that was the thing I was thinking. So I know that sometimes there are two different leadership approaches to, say, when you're in a structured paid position versus a volunteer organization. So how do you motivate volunteers to get involved at any level in the storytelling operation?
Well, one is giving them resources, lots of resources that they can use to follow their interests. So there's lots of possibilities. It just doesn't have to be one particular way. So when, at least in the storytelling community, once you get into this network, you can hear people from all over the world, and especially now that we have everything's on Zoom and we're not doing much in person, you hear storytellers from all over the world. So that by itself is captivating. And if you're inquisitive at all, it gives you lots of ideas for material, because you hear a story and you go, ooh, oh yeah, oh, I get it. And then in terms of the organizations I'm with, we provide a lot of leadership opportunities. We get speakers, maybe like yourself, who have a lot of talent in those areas, and we provide workshops. And there's a national storytelling network that has all kinds of resources. It's got a leadership group that meets. It's got all kinds of workshops on developing your skills as a storyteller. So there's lots of opportunity and possibilities for learning about storytelling in this whole field. Now, there are at the national organizations, there are paid positions. So, you know, we have a core team at the National Storytelling Network, and that would be a paid position. But I would say all the rest of the storytelling community are volunteers, although a lot of them are professional storytellers, and they get hired for festivals and conferences. So you can earn money at this, especially when it was in person. And then a lot of storytellers, besides telling to adult audiences, most all of them tell stories to children, and they are hired by schools to perform. That, you know, and some people make a good living at that.
Right. And so the main thing I was thinking about is that the majority of it is volunteer. And so when you're volunteer, people have to want to do it. When you're in a paid position, people have to do it, but people have to want to do it to be in storytelling. And that's the skill I was thinking about that you have, and you said that a lot of that comes through the idea of listening to people, reaching out to people. And when I look at it, you make it look so easy. But I know that when you make it look easy, there was a lot of hard work that went underneath that. So what kind of things do you do behind the scenes to keep things going, reaching out? Because you seem to be everywhere. So how do you do that? What is your secret sauce for behind the scenes work that helps people want to do this?
Well, I think a key thing is once I connect with people is to give them the resources, like I said earlier, all the possibilities, the different ways to be involved at whatever level you want to be.
Now, what are those resources?
Oh, so gosh, all the story swap groups that are all over the world that you can log on to and listen to. In our own group, the Storytelling Association of California, we put on events. So events for people to listen to. And once, like we just joined forces with the Sacramento Poetry Center for our local group. And these poets are listening to us tell stories and they're going, oh, wow, I never heard of storytelling. This is really fascinating. So just having the events, and I think once, because a lot of people think storytelling, that's the thing you do with children, and that's it. But once they hear a good quality story, it's captivating and it's very engaging, just like your wife is an amazing storyteller. And when people hear her, they go, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. This is high level entertainment. So that I think really hooks people in. So the resource piece of it. The other is getting the information out. So having a good mailing list. And and in California, we have 15 different active story swap groups. So each of them has a leader, and then, you know, and a little team of people that really are their own boards that put together events, and then they network out. So it's a small network to a big network, and lots of advertising and publicity out there to our huge mailing list. And then now that we're doing Zoom nationally, in the next event I'm putting on, I have this amazing storyteller from India come in. She's going to be coming in and doing folk tales, a folk tale with us. And she's done this before and she's amazing. And she joined our organization here in California. So it's that networking piece also.
Well, that's interesting. You know, let me ask you, with the shutdowns, the pandemic, from in-person to online, have things been more expansive now? How would you compare the two, in-person versus the Zoom environment for storytelling? Has it helped? Has it hurt?
Well, it's definitely helped. However, most of us who are storytellers, we want to be in person. I mean, you know, most all of us are performers and you interact with an audience, and it's a whole different ballgame. And a lot of us don't know a lot about computers, so we have a big learning curve. However, the benefit of it is that now, like I said earlier, I meet people from all over the world, and I tell stories in India and England and Australia and Canada and all across the States. And then I get to hear these tellers, because at an event, there's usually about 7 storytellers. And then again, you get good material. So the pandemic, in that sense, has been fantastic. And then a lot of us are going to, when we are able to get back to in-person, we are going to do a hybrid. So we'll have our in-person meetings, and we've been learning in our Sacramento Storytellers Guild, did one in-person where we tried it, and we hooked a laptop up to a television set, or you could do through a projector, and people can zoom in and tell, and you can see them up on the screen or on the wall, wherever you can project up to, or on a TV to connect into. We are going to be doing that, and a lot of groups are going to continue that because they love having people from all over the world come in and tell stories, and also have a bigger audience to share their stories with.
So it gives you the best of both worlds then.
Definitely. Yeah, I like that. And actually, our local group, the Sacramento Storytellers Guild, is the only group to done this so far. So we are putting together a package of how to do it, what works for us, and kind of as a model. And the Storytelling Association of California is going to send that out to all the groups that are in our own organization and other groups that to encourage them to try to do the Zoom thing once they get in person again, if they're interested.
Right. Now, you mentioned that there are 15 storytelling associations or whatever around Sacramento area.
No, this is in California.
Oh,
So
California, 15 California.
basically, what the system is, there are story swap groups in all kinds of locations. We have the Sacramento Storytellers Guild for our area. The Foothill has, up in Auburn area, they have the Foothill Storytelling Group. Sonora has the Motherlode Storytelling. San Diego Storytellers of San Diego. It's all over the state. So there are 15 organizations that are active right now, and we put on their events through Zoom through the Storytelling Association of California website.
Got it.
So it doesn't cost them; they don't have to pay for Zoom and all that stuff.
And before the pandemic, did you do a lot of traveling around to these different groups in California, or was it mainly just telephone calls and that type of thing?
Yeah, that was it. It was just more telephone calls. Some people, I'm a traveler, but most people don't travel that much. But
okay.
And most of these groups have once a month meetings, and so it was more localized. You would tell your own group, or maybe go to one that's 30 miles away.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's good. But like Zoom does help, and that way you're able to attend remotely if you have the opportunity.
Yes.
Now, in the storytelling industry, it's a lot of fun, a lot of great people. What are the obstacles? What have you ever faced? Any obstacles in this, and how did you overcome them?
Sure. No matter what group you're in, there's always someone that is just blah, 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 and they won't shut up. They can just keep on. They can dominate a discussion. And if you're, in a group, or if you're a leader of a group, you have to figure out how everyone gets the chance to participate. So that's a big obstacle with any organization I've been in. And one of the things that I do to help overcome that kind of a structure is when we have a gathering, a meeting, an hour meeting, or whatever our time frame is, that we set ground rules in the beginning. The number one ground rule is we want to hear from everybody who has something to share. And then, depending on our time frame, we might put time limits on. So you got 5 minutes to present your ideas, or what, if it comes to that. And then also we do that in the storytelling community. We have a certain amount of time. We have 6, 7 storytellers. We give them up to 10 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever. And then, if they're going over that, we'll just come on and say, excuse me, we really need to hear from Sam right now, so please just wrap up and let's move on. So that's a big obstacle that I found in leadership positions and groups.
Well, it sounds like you've got the remedy for it, which is good. Now, one thing, what is the toughest situation you faced as a storyteller, as an organization, as a leader? What's the toughest situation you faced? Or has there been any?
Well, that one that I just described. I would say probably another one is, so you have an idea. So I have a new idea, and I want to, and I present it, but might be one person in there who's more of a powerhouse in the structure, and they don't like it. So they just kind of poo-poo it. They have more say so, or they arrange the meetings, and they just don't follow through with it. So that is very frustrating when you have a situation like that, and you have a good idea, and you want more people to be involved, not have one person just go, okay, forget it. So, so I've had that happen before, and in that case, I make sure that I follow up with the whole group and just say, oh yeah, I want to respond to some of the ideas that people have about why this is not going to be workable. And I've made a couple changes here, and I make sure it gets around to the entire group so we're all communicating, and then put that forth instead of just having one person just kind of brush it under the table.
Right. So that's the main thing I think about is, so if our leaders were to face that kind of situation, based on what you've said, they'd have kind of a way of an approach to it. And there's no cookie cutter way to do with tough situations, but it's more of the approach. And your approach should be to engage the entire group and kind of set that tone for it. And would you pull that person aside to talk to them as well, to kind of say, hey, you may not have noticed this, but this is kind of what's happening, how it's affecting the group. Do you do that as well?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. For sure. I think it's so important that if you're having issues with somebody, to get them out in the open and try and work it out privately with them, not in front of the whole group, but to try and work out what the problems are. And of course, if that doesn't work and it's really disastrous to the group, bring out the discussion to the larger group and deal with it, because otherwise somebody like that is maybe a negative person all the time, then they're not going to face any consequences.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be just brushed under the table, and they'll get what they want, and that's it. So at least you get it out to the whole group. Maybe you don't get what you want anyway, but at least everyone has a say in the process. But again, get together privately with the person for sure.
Right. That way you don't know how to deal with it. Now, in terms of the storytelling, what do you find most rewarding about storytelling, about the people you work with, all the things associated with storytelling? What's most rewarding for you?
Well, how appreciative people are, you know, and how encouraging and how forthright people are, especially if you say that you want feedback. And a lot of groups have time for feedback, and you want it to be honest. So, but a lot of people have learned the technique of showing appreciation, the things you were appreciative for, instead of just complaining and criticizing. So putting it in a system where people can hear it. And so I found that the storytelling community is really open to that kind of communication and support, and telling people about other resources, other stories that you might listen to get ideas, and help you. And especially, there's people like yourself who are coaches in the storytelling world. And again, that's a resource that gets around throughout the community, and you can take workshops and all kinds of things from people that are really professional.
Right. In fact, I got a client from one of your storytelling events.
Oh, nice. Oh, fantastic. Who was that?
Well, she doesn't want me to disclose it, but I definitely did.
Excellent. Very nice.
Yeah. So that was great. Now, what's on the horizon for Ed Lewis and the Storytelling Association? What's coming up that people may want to know about?
Well, the Storytelling Association of California, one of the pieces that I've added into it is the genre storytelling series. And we just completed our first year, and it was very successful. So we're going into the new year. And I suggested to the board that we pay every teller a certain amount. Before, we just took the donations and divided it up. But now we decided we're just going to pay everyone $50, whether they're an MC or a storyteller for their 10-minute story to come on and tell their story. So that's one thing that I'm proud of putting out there. And that the series is so successful, and that one of the other things that this was a suggestion with the board, is because I MC all the events. It was my thing that I put together, but we want to get other people to be MCs, and we have other events we put on. So we're doing trainings now, being an MC, and we're gonna hire an MC to do different events. So, for example, next month with the genre, I'm not going to be the MC. You know, we're hiring somebody else that has been trained and is pretty good at that. So, so that's one thing. But probably the most important thing for me right now is we're going to do a pilot program, a woman and I, on a children's storytelling half hour for children 3 to 9 years of age. And the person and I are going to do, the storyteller, we're going to do stories in that half hour, singing, puppetry, movement activities in that half hour framework. And if it's successful, we're going to have it twice a month on Saturdays from 10 to 10:30. And then after the first couple of rounds, then we're going to start getting other people in that are good working with children, have them come in as guest people, and then we'll kind of move towards the back burner and get people from our huge community wherever around the world, where could come from anywhere and zoom in and share a story or teach a song or do a little dance movement for the younger kids. And that's my background. I'm a retired early childhood professor. And when I travel, I tell stories at adult events, but I also go into schools. And that's, I don't know, that's my main love, is to work with children.
Right. And Ed, something just came to mind. I'm in Carmichael Toastmasters, and one of our members works with children, and for 7 weeks in a row, they're going to have slots for, could be a Toastmaster speaker, but I'm thinking it may be an opportunity for some of the storytellers too. So I can get that information to you offline, but I don't know if that's something you'd be interested in or not.
Sure, definitely. And, I know lots of people that could fill that slot also. So definitely.
Okay. I will get you in contact with the woman who's coordinating that and see what you can work out.
Nice. Well, one of our swap groups with the Storytelling Association of California is a Toastmasters group in Los Angeles. So they're one of our members. And they participate in our storytelling events.
Okay, that's where worlds come together.
Right.
So if people want to contact you to learn more about Ed Lewis or to learn more about storytelling and getting involved, how would they do that? Through a website, phone numbers? What would you recommend that they look into?
I would say my email. Email is the best way. My phone also, but also through the Storytelling Association of California. You can just go online with that. But do you want me to tell you my email right now?
Your email, and any way, if you want people to contact you or learn more about the thing, just go ahead and rattle those numbers off or sites off and that type of thing.
Yeah. So my email is my name, Ed-Lewis, Lewis, at sbcglobal.net. Then I'm also on the board of the Storytelling Association of California. You can just type that in and get there. But the email is storysac.org. Story, STORY. SAC is SAAC.org. Storysac.org. So those are the two main ways that are best to contact me.
Well, Ed, this has been great. For those who are interested in storytelling, not only storytelling, but how to work with people who are involved in storytelling and get the most out of everybody and have some very exciting experiences. So this is really, really great. And Ed, we really appreciate this.
Thank you so much.
And folks, this is WRM, Work Relationships Matter. I'm your host, The Edward Jones. To learn more about my coaching, go to www.prodestinycoaching.com. Take the work relationship quiz, and you will be eligible for a complimentary 50-minute consultation. And remember, work relationships work for those who work on them. Okay.
Bye.